Good day, Cherry Blossom family. As per usual, we have awesome people on our show, and we're continuing that today. And I will say, this is Vanessa Snyder of Eurofins. Eurofins is one of the largest and most prestigious testing facilities of all kinds on the planet, not just cannabinoid testing, but all kinds of testing. We're going to get into that in a second, but first I wanted to say to you, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your time and your expertise with us. Let's say that in advance. And you just happen to be maybe the second, for whatever reason, like the second woman I've interviewed in this particular series. And it happens to be like the second day of Women's History Month. So boom, there you go. You get the time. Vanessa, tell us about yourself, your story, your professional background, and what led you to the cannabis, hemp and cannabis testing aspect of this industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to do this. I think it all started back growing up in high school, college. I've always really been into health and wellness, which kind of spurred me into studying dietetics at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and from there on spring break, spring break my senior year, I actually did an internship with Hogan Laboratories, which later was acquired by Eurofins.
Okay.
And it turned into a job from there. So I've been with the company now for, gosh, it'll be 11 years in May.
Wow.
Which is crazy, but it's been awesome. I've held different roles throughout the company. And now I'm a business development director, and I oversee our hemp botanicals and OTC services.
The world's got a plan for that. That is for sure. What were you doing before, like 2014? Like before all this stuff was even allowed?
From a lab standpoint, or
from a lab?
Yep. So we've always been in the nutritional chemistry testing space. So we test supplements, food, feed, beverages, infant formula. So I was primarily working in those different industries. And then when CBD came along, at least in my personal life and professional life, it kind of, I guess, married like perfectly at the same time. So personally, I actually had a dog that suffered from epilepsy.
Oh, no.
And, me being kind of the research, sciencey wellness brain that I have, I started looking into alternative treatments because his medication really wasn't helping. And I stumbled onto CBD. And it ultimately really did help my dog. Unfortunately, he's not with us today, but it did help a lot. And then at that same time, we were being approached by CBD companies saying, hey, we want a reputable lab. Can you bring on testing capabilities? And that kind of opened the door for us and then for me to start working into the space. So it was great timing, actually.
Wow. It's kind of crazy because it is great timing, and it's sort of like, you sort of kind of kept going with these calls coming in and sort of spearheaded, and now you're spearheading this program. But it doesn't seem like because of what you're doing, or what the company was doing, that it really wasn't a big jump. It wasn't a big transition. That you were already, testing things for for the reasons of like safety of the general public. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you are spot on. I mean, we've already had testing in our wheelhouse and really strive for that high quality. So it was honestly just bringing on some new methodology, working with the different matrices for hemp and hemp-derived products. And then just kind of going around a little bit of red tape at the beginning there, because there are obviously some gray areas with hemp and cannabis. But yeah, it really wasn't a big jump. Our lab is fully capable and we have an awesome team of scientists, so it worked out well for us.
I'm gonna kind of put you and your company in the spotlight for a second. And we talk about a lot of these labs that come up in the last few years since whatever act of legalization happened in their respective states. But I'm not sure exactly when your company started. But at this point, it boasts 55,000 employees, 900 labs in 50 countries. That is credibility in a sentence, really. Like if you had to go someplace and know that you're going to be well taken care of and people are going to be crossing all the T's and dotting the I's, it kind of says it. 50 countries doesn't lie.
You put some work for us. It's true. It's amazing the laboratory network we have and the global reach and the industries we touch. I mean, here in the US, especially for the US Foods Division, our nutritional chemistry laboratory in Madison has been around for, I think, 90 years now with nutritional chemistry testing. So we have a lot of experience, a lot of capabilities. We have a brand new lab at the Madison site, and I think it is now the largest analytical nutritional chemistry lab in the US.
Wow, that's what I'm talking about. So as it applies to testing, can you tell us in lay terms what are genomics, discovery pharmacology, forensics, and CDMO, advanced material science? Like all these things are listed, but like I was looking at this stuff like, do people really understand what these terms mean? Somebody obviously does, but
so the great thing about my role is I have the connections within network to get you to the smart people that can
looking like a salesperson. I love it.
What I can and cannot answer and who I need to go to. But awesome. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, we have over 900 labs globally, so we touch on so many different industries. My focus is primarily, again, hemp and kind of food supplement space. So I can't get into as much detail into some of those other areas, but I can always point you to a person who can. That's fair.
That's fair. That was a pretty layered question. So had you been able to answer, I would have been rather impressed.
I wish I could, but there's a lot I have to keep up with. Push something else out.
So you mentioned like both food and hemp. How are these things coming together in your world? Are more and more food manufacturers, beverage manufacturers kind of seem to be opting in to this hemp and cannabis world? It seems like it can be like a one-stop shop for people like yourself.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting, especially over the past couple of years with everything going on in the hemp industry. We're seeing some big players come in. We're seeing smaller companies go out. It's kind of a whirlwind, but in terms of testing and what we can offer, obviously we can do your usual potency, contaminants, microbiology on hemp and your hemp-derived products. But on the flip side, we can do nutritional analysis. So we do labeling, fatty acids, things like that. And then when you talk more on the supplement side, we're seeing hemp and CBD companies add in things like melatonin or theanine or GABA and really expanding their product portfolios. With COVID, we're seeing a lot more immune products with CBD. So we have capabilities as well. We have a botanical lab in California that really helps to do the ingredient testing and identity testing that might be going into some of those products.
So that's so amazing, really. I mean, it's amazing to me because we all have just a kind of a box that we see this industry through, and it's really the whole purpose of this show. I just think that there's a lot of people who aren't really, a lot of people and aspects of this industry that aren't really getting the spotlight shown on them. There's so many hands that go into that you may not see that go into getting your product, from to the shelf that you pick it up on to your house, all these things, and so here we are. So in the last couple of years, one of the big things that people have been talking about, and I know this has to have come up at least several times, in your offices, on the subject of like these intoxicating hemp-derived cannabinoids, Delta 8s. Now we're talking Delta 9. I think I heard Delta 7 a year ago. There was 10. Now there's THCO, and there's another one. I heard another THCP, I think. So what is happening right now? And this I call it the great disruptor because it's kind of disrupted both industries, both hemp and cannabis, legal. Well, you know what I mean when I say. Yeah.
Internally, we kind of laugh about it because, working on method validation for D10, and then, you know, it's already like, well, now people are talking about D7 and D6. I mean, I think our method development team and our scientists like it. I guess it's something for them to do, but yeah, we're always keeping a pulse on kind of what's coming in industry, you know, whether people agree with it or not. We want to be able to make sure that we are meeting that need and being able to test it adequately for the industry. So yeah, it's interesting. I know there's kind of industry's a little split. There's different schools of thought about it, but I mean, from my standpoint, it ultimately always just comes down to consumer safety and, you know, obviously there are intoxicating substances and making sure that it's labeled appropriately and tested. I mean, that's my biggest ask, I guess. But yeah, we're keeping on top of it. I think our D10 is in method development still, but we're hoping to be able to have that commercially available soon as an option for companies.
Well, all the rest of those you can test for safely and give someone like a proper COA and say, hey, you know. So you hear these stories, and I ask you these questions because like you're sort of viewed as like the front line in a way of these protections between business and consumer, you know. You hear stories about people getting sick. You hear success stories about these cannabinoids. You also hear these horror stories. If you are the front line and you do kind of have a perspective of safety, what is that? Can you say? Are you allowed to say?
So
are things safe for people to consume? Like, do we know that yet?
Yeah, so I mean, we do have, Eurofins does have like a toxicology division. So we've done clinical trials, things like that. So I can't speak to that as much, but in terms of the actual product safety, so is it free of contaminants? Is it free of, you know, microbial contamination, things like that? That's where our space really sits.
Okay.
Which is a big thing too. Obviously, you don't want to have pesticides and residual solvents or heavy metals in a product. That's not good for anyone. So from a product standpoint, our view on safety is really just ensuring that the product is what it says it is. It has the things in there that we want in there, and it doesn't have the things that we don't want
it. What are those things? Like, have you seen anything or have any reports come back that totally surprised you or frightened you? Like, oh my God, like what did we just test here? Like, what is in this product?
It's not common. Again, Eurofins really strives ourselves on our quality. That being said, we're working with companies that truly do value that as well. So we are working with a lot of the really good players in industry. We did do an interesting study, I think about a year or two ago, where we tested soil samples for pesticides and then tested the biomass out of that soil. Mm-hmm. And we have a paper out there, or a poster out there that shows the transference of the pesticide from the soil to the plant. So it's an area of concern, and it can happen. So that's why it is really so important that, you know, you're kind of testing throughout the whole process. We like to say seed to sale, but seed soil, seed soil sale.
Well, you can't get the plant without the soil, so that's very important.
Yep.
You know, it's funny that we talk about this because, you know, I think it goes without saying that a lot of people who maybe listen to this, and not everybody participates necessarily in hemp. They may prefer something a little more intoxicating. And most of those people have been doing this for decades. So as you hear the things that you're talking about, and these points that you're bringing up, it makes you think, like, what have people been really consuming, you know, especially like on a black or gray market where there's no oversight and you just have to trust, like, what has been happening, you know? And it's amazing that you haven't heard any more horror stories in a way, you know, from that.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. It is kind of scary to think about some of that. And I know, I mean, especially for companies, testing is not the most glamorous thing, you know, budgets, but it is so important. I mean, not only for protecting the consumers, but the brand. So
No doubt.
it's not the most fun thing to talk about, but it's really good.
It's like cleaning, you know, like no one wants to do it, but it's got to be done. You know what I mean?
I love cleaning. Vacuuming is like one of my favorite hobbies.
Hey, come on over. Like, honey, we got another one. Let's go the other direction with these other minor cannabinoids. There's a lot of conversation, and still, like, it's like one a day keeps coming up. You know, well, it's this and this, and there's CBG and there's CBN and there's CBA and CBDA. How has this conversation been evolving in your world over the last couple of years? How much more important have these minor cannabinoids become to your consumers or the people who are actually patronizing, you and your business?
Yeah, they've been creeping up for the past couple of years. We obviously have a lot of clients that do test for them. Sometimes they like to keep their blends proprietary, so they're not always reported on their CFAs. But one exciting development we've recently launched this year was a new Lcms method. And that method was developed to much, much lower levels of quantification it started for THC, but now we can do the full profile, so we can include those minors, which our clients really like to use for, marketing purposes. So they can see at much lower levels, okay, what is actually in this profile aside from just, the CBD. So I think that's definitely going to continue. I'll actually be at Natural Products Expo West next week, and I have a feeling I'm going to be seeing a lot more focus on the minor cannabis.
No doubt. From a retailer standpoint, it does kind of give you extra selling points for doing absolutely nothing. Like this thing just keeps producing stuff, and I can just talk about it. Yep. So, where it seems that your role at Eurofins requires a broad base of knowledge to be able to work with all these different types of industries and keep sometimes a totally different end goal in mind from customer to customer. How do you keep all this stuff straight?
That's a good question. There's a lot, and especially in the hemp space with regulation changing all the time, it's a lot to keep up with, but I think that's why I love my role so much, is it's, constantly evolving. I'm always learning. I've never been someone who likes to be bored in a role. I'd rather be busy and always learning something. Yes. So it's just kind of keeping tabs on industry, staying involved in industry. For the most part, we deal more, on the CBD product side of things, whether it's, topicals, oils, tinctures, things like that. But we're also heavily involved with the Hemp Seed Coalition. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with that organization.
No.
Okay, so I am on the board for the Hemp Seed Coalition, and the mission of the HFC is to gain federal approval for hemp and its byproducts to be legal to be sold and used in animal feed. So right now it's illegal for us to feed, hemp seeds or hemp seed cake to our animals or make it commercially available. So we're working on doing all the nutritional profiling on those various byproducts to submit to FDA CVM in order to get that approval. So, you have the CBD side, you have the feed side,
right,
and fiber. There's a lot.
And I don't know if you're actually going to have to be involved in the grain aspect of this as we move forward. Probably grain, maybe not, totally as much fiber, but definitely all these things, they have an impact. They do. Yeah, it's very interesting that you say that, because I had another guy here a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about some of the same things, and I think some of the listeners think, well, why would they care? Like, do they care more about the animals than they do people? And I don't think that's it. If I'm hearing it correctly, what I'm hearing is that people consume the animals, so they were really ultimately concerned about people and what going to get transferred to us through these animals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the concerns. It is interesting though, because there's not CBD or THC inherently found in hemp seeds. So with those byproducts, I mean, we are finding absolutely nothing, even with the new, low-level method. So
Wow.
if there's nothing even found in the product, there really shouldn't be anything transferring to the
There you
animal,
go.
definitely not the people. So unfortunately, we have to do the science and collect the data to prove it, which is time-consuming and expensive, but we hope to get there. It is, it's such an amazing ingredient. It's so nutritious and would be so great for our animals. And I always laugh about it because I think some people actually do feed their animals better than they feed themselves.
They do. Yeah.
Like, let's get this in animal feed.
That's pretty funny. You know, it's we have a little back and forth sometimes via email every now and then. And you're like, well, I'm here. You seem to be like, you keep you pretty busy over there. You're always on the go. What do you do in your free time? Like when you're not running around with Eurofins, like what do you do?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, like I said, I'm very into wellness. So one of my obsessions a little bit is getting a good sweat session. So I'm really into the Peloton right now.
Okay.
I also love running. It's cold outside in Wisconsin, so winter I don't do as much running. But my husband and I love running marathons together. So yeah, I mean, I guess that and travel. We actually want to run a marathon in all 50 states.
Wow.
19 so far.
You convinced him to do this with you.
I did. Yep. Actually,
powerful,
the first time I convinced him to sign up for a marathon with me. Poor sucker.
You guys clearly are not part of this beer and bratwurst nation up there, huh?
Okay, there's a lot of beer still. I have to share this with you. I actually drink a beer during every marathon. It's like
really?
It's my secret sauce.
Like somewhere in the middle, like at the beginning, at the end?
Usually more towards the end. But I once chugged a Limeys, I think at like mile 3, and it was my PR.
Oh my gosh. Limeys are good. They're doing something good up there with those beers. And we're like just discovering them down here like 10 years ago, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you guys are keeping them all up there. It's pretty smart. Well, I am going to let you go. I'm going to let you go on with your Friday. I got 2 more questions for you. What is the one thing you want people to know about you and what you do? And what if anyone, your grandmother saw this, what do you want her to take away from this interview?
I guess just, really recognizing the importance of quality testing, and why it's so important to the safety of the product and what you're putting into your body. And then I guess as working for a third-party laboratory, we truly do want to be your partner. And we see ourselves really as an extension of internal quality and R&D teams. So I just want people to know that I'm a resource and a liaison to our whole network of laboratories.
You're good. You set this stuff up for me because now we wrap this up with a shameless plug, which you get to talk about anything that you want. You promote your business, your product, your service. You have a promo code that you want to promote right now. Anything new that's happening within your company. So you got a minute on the clock, Vanessa. It's it.
Oh gosh, I could go on forever, but I think the most exciting things happening. We did receive our CDPHE certification. For the state of Colorado. We're actually the first laboratory to meet the full scope profile for the pesticide testing. So very proud of our team with that. And then I did mention the Lcms methodology for those low-level THC. That's really exciting for us. And then actually on March 15th, I will be hosting a webinar with a more in-depth industry update and analytical trend updates, kind of what's going on at Eurofins. So I'd be happy to have you and any of your viewers join us.
Yeah, just send me a link. I'll put it out there to people, and I'll definitely be there. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Well, Vanessa, you know, before I totally let you go, I just want to say that you have a very nice voice. You have a calming cadence about you. You have a very good way of speaking. I never had to worry about what you were saying. You know, it's really, really nice. They have a good cadence about you. I know that's not like some sort of like glowing comment that you say about most people, but it is. It's like, I don't know. I notice these things because I do this every week.
Hopefully you didn't catch too much of my Midwest accent.
No, I didn't. Hey, you didn't say pop or anything. None of that. So.
I nixed the pop when I moved to Wisconsin. Sometimes my no will carry out a little bit, and I always get called out on saying bag, like a purse, bag.
Bag? That's so funny. Oh my goodness. We all have a little something. It's funny. I'm originally from North Carolina, and I've been living outside of DC most of my life. And people say every now and then, people are like, "What'd you just say? Like, did you just have a twang to it?" I was like, "Oh yeah, that comes out every now and then."
It sneak out here and there.
It slips on out. What do you know? Cheroots coming out. You know, that's all it is.
All right.
Thank you so much. You have a great weekend. I don't know if you have a family outside of your husband, but you and your husband have a great weekend. You and your family, whatever you do, if you're doing some running, prepare for those marathons. Okay, you got to put that on the internet. My God, that's crazy.
Thank you so much. You too. Looking forward
Thank
to
you.
it.
And if you don't mind, we may come back to you and try to set another one of these up either later this year or sometime next year.
Would be more than happy to.
Thank you, Vanessa. And we'll send you a copy of this as well, okay?
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.